episode is powered by Safety FM.
This podcast is being sponsored by SafetyConsultantBlueprint.com.
Welcome to the Safety Consultant Podcast. I'm your host, Sheldon Primus, and in this podcast, I teach you the business of becoming a safety consultant. Last week, we spoke to my good friend, Ari Copeland, in our episode 1. He's telling us a lot about the utility field and safety, how he has to deal with learning cultures as a consultant per se for his company, Black & Veatch, where he goes out there and he is the rep for the operations for new water and wastewater plants. He gets to see things in the field that are completely from the start of the building process of a wastewater or water treatment plant, and then he comes back in some cases and he helps get the startup process going and sometimes troubleshooting process. So in that, he sees a lot of hazards related to safety and health. He sees some actual process control issues that he helps the utility with, but he sees a whole bunch of things out there. So we got talking about that. We also discussed some things related to what do you do if you see somebody that is doing an unsafe act? How would you intervene in that scenario? And in episode 1, Ari did speak about his personal experience with his father dying in an industrial accident and that impact that it had on his life and his reasons for speaking up. In this episode, we're really going to talk about a few things that really means a lot to Ari. He is a trans man, and he has been through the process of becoming a trans man from that standpoint of his employer, Black & Veatch at the time. He left and came back and left, I believe, and came back again. They have been rated very high in diversity, as well as they give their employees a sense of psychological safety. So that's a term I learned during this interview. I like it a lot. I've kind of used it already, and I believe that it's very important for us in the safety field that if we were going to counsel, if we're going to consult, if we're going to be out in the field in any way, we know that the new workers coming in, especially the Gen Z workers, they identify very differently than we do as myself, a Gen Xer, and baby boomers, and even the millennials before them. So I feel that this conversation that me and Ari have is a direct influence on your culture. So this is a safety culture topic, and it comes from the perspective of his personal experiences. So just listen up. It's a fun episode. Me and Ari always have fun together, so it's kind of cool. I'm really just loving this episode the more and more I hear it. Again, I would like you to please excuse any of the sound quality. We had an issue with his sound as we were recording, but I didn't want to, mess this quality up. So maybe next time we do this one, we'll have to do it in person or do it another way. So just sit back, enjoy. You're going to have a good time with this. And then when we're done, I'm going to do a very special tip of the week. Hey,
I hear you. Go ahead.
For my listeners that have to deal with pretty much there's a whole bunch of safety right now that is it's like deep dive safety where you truly see like the regular safety and health part where it's the PPE, the engineering control and everything else, and then they have the deep dive safety where you're thinking about people's mentality, their personality, interactions with each other, and how you have violence in the workplace and interactions. So that side, like I was telling you a while ago, we were talking, and Ari's got a different story that hopefully he'll share with us. I know that you're an activist for those people with the genders, and I see it all the time because one of the classes I teach is a management class for safety and health. And one of the things we talk about is different communications, and then we also talk about the workplace in itself and how culture is not just coming into work and saying, all right, let's be safe today, guys. It's actually how everybody interacts with each other. And then also we have truly in this generation, in this time, the workplace that has been charged with intolerance, if you will. And that's truly what it looks like. And I've seen even adult people, as I'm telling them, right now, remember the Time magazine article, but there are, I think it's something like 40 or 45 known genders identification. It might even be more right now, because that was a while. So with that, the class kind of erupted, and there's it feels like I was talking to junior high schoolers, and I'm like, hold on, you guys are supposed to be managers. If you're involved in this and you have to deal with a confrontation, then you could truly hurt somebody if someone chooses to be identified as a they or them or whatever it is. And the millennial side, they always were, all that is, they're entitled and they don't know what they're doing, and millennials this, and so those two things to me have been truly, it's transcended into the safety and health side.
Oh, yeah, they're connected. They're interconnected.
They're interconnected. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and break it down for us.
Sure. So, within my company, we have things like employee resource groups. So usually those groups are, I don't want to say targeted, but they're organized. They're grassroots organizations that are organized internally in a company that generally represent underrepresented groups of people, right? So the one that I chair or I'm very involved with is the BAB Pride ERG, so very focused on LGBTQI, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual, agender, and it's a longer acronym than even that, but plus anyone that didn't identify in that, plus professionals and allies, so people that support those people. So we do a lot of events and things to try to cultivate a culture of psychological safety for those types of professionals, me included. When it comes to gender, people, the thing I don't understand about it largely is because it's politicized. So like my identity, and I'm a trans man, so the first, 8 years of my career I spent and I worked and I was perceived as a woman, pretty much. And then I transitioned, and there was a period of time where people couldn't tell what I was, which was very interesting and quote unquote special. And then, there's a period of time now where if you were to see me, I think looking at me, I don't think you would really know. Most people don't know unless I tell them.
Just a ZZ Top beard.
Yeah, it helps. It helps me. It helps a lot.
Yeah.
So, but, when I look back, and I was thinking about this the other day, how people talk to me, or how people used to interact with me, and how people used to make assumptions about me changed during those periods of those 3 phases of my life. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, people now assume that I'm more capable because of what I am in ways that I'm not capable at all. Like,
really?
I can't fix your car. I have no idea how a car works. Don't care. I put gas in the car and I drive it, and I pay someone else to care about the rest of it. Don't care. Don't care about sports. Don't care about sports. People talk to me. I'm just looking at them like, I'm like, am I supposed to know what team this is? Like, I start guessing. I'm like, is it baseball?
You gotta
football?
know about the Chiefs now, right?
Oh my God, I'm over it. But it's all the assumptions that people made about me. And, I have to go along with it to a certain degree. If I'm at a place and the client cares about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great stuff. Care. You know how it goes. But, that's just amazing. Whatever. So-and-so just won. That's wonderful. What sport are we talking about again? Oh yeah. But I wouldn't have those conversations in my previous life with anybody unless I was wearing like a hat or you know what I mean? Like that conversation wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Or people would, look at me and assume I couldn't do certain things because of what I was, and I could purely do them. It's not rocket science. Operations is not gender based. As someone who identifies any, let's just say 45 ways or not, regardless, whatever label someone or whatever identity people hold near to their hearts isn't generally impacted on what they're able to do. Because as long as you have a functioning brain, you can work safely, last time I checked, and you can operate a treatment plant. So it's you have to want to and work towards it. Not all of us have the same capacity, but in my opinion, you can learn it if you want to. That's how I feel. So, I try to break down it.
Break in 1 second. Now, for your career, when you started at B&B, how early in your process were you when you started at B&B?
So I started working at Black & Veatch in 2007, and I had worked at another consultant before that who was acquired by AECOM, so they no longer exist. And then before that, I worked at the EPA. Well, I got my grad degree, and then, I took a break between Black & Veatch and worked at AWWA and then came back. So, so when I came to work at Black & Veatch, most people probably perceived me as female and probably not straight, would be my guess. And that's how I identified for a really long time. So, I lived, I thought that's what I was for a really long time. So I would say a year after I started working at Black & Veatch, I started reevaluating how I identify. And there were a lot of things in my life that kind of, weren't in alignment with how I was feeling or thinking or really kind of internalizing a lot of my world. So, and it was hard because, I wasn't really raised around men. So I have two sisters and my mother. So my mother raised me by herself. So I didn't really have exposure to that, really. So I think for me, probably a year in, maybe 2 years, 2009, I would say is probably when I started to actually medicate myself for it. Meaning I started doing HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. So I started HRT, and I actually didn't come out to my employer until 2 years after I started that. So it was, so that equates into the time where no one could tell what I was. But I got them to call me Ari as my chosen name before I legally changed it. So I kind of started doing that first.
Now, for your coworkers and your interaction with the employer, was there much of a difference? Was there any kind of intolerance? Because this is early, 2009.
And it was Florida. It was Florida. Yeah, let's add the Florida part to it, because I'm not dissing Florida. Anyone who's listening to Florida, I love Florida. I have a lot of awesome friends in Florida. Sheldon being one of them, because Sheldon is from Florida. But
just look up Florida, man, and then you'll see why.
Just read the news.
So during that time, so what happened? How did they interact with you? What did you disclose? All kinds of stuff. If you can remember back that far.
Oh yeah, I remember. I won't say unfortunately to talk about my employer, but I was outed by a client. In a way, so a client, I'm not going to say who is and what that was. It doesn't matter anymore. This is like 2010. It's water under the bridge. But a client, I guess, I showed up to their site. It was a person I didn't work for normally, and I said, "Hey, my name is Ari," because everyone was calling me Ari at that point. Most people knew me by that name versus another name. And he's like, "Okay." So he called me he, and I guess apparently I was with my boss at the time, or supervisor. I don't remember what the structure was when I was working at Black & Veatch, because we had many management structures. And the guy, I guess my boss, when I left, corrected him and said, "No, that's not a he, that's a she." He's like, so the client was upset by that. So it goes back to you dealing with kindergartners in your safety class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So this guy decided to be a kindergartner, I think, and just said, "Well, that's little." I think he was just like, "Well, that person should have corrected me. Like, what the heck's going on?" And, it's just a little weird. So, of course, the office manager of the office I was working in got a phone call saying, "I've interacted with your employees. This is bizarre, and I think you need to deal with it." I was very lucky because I was very close to my HR business partner, who she still works here. It's amazing. She hired me back twice. It's like she's a really good friend of mine.
That's great.
And it's really great because, and she basically said, "Ari, this is what happened. Honestly, I could care less about the client. They don't really matter. I can care less if they have a problem with it or not. It's not really their place to judge it, but the only thing that we need from you is to understand like what's going on. Are you like okay? We understand this is just going to happen more often, so like just tell us what's up.
Yeah.
So I came out. I didn't really have a choice, but I did it because I felt like, well, it's time to just get over with.
Yep.
And I was very lucky. The people that I worked with are truly professionals in every sense of the word. I'm sure there are people that talked about me. In fact, I knew there were because they always come back to me. I know a lot of people. You know that. So if you're going to say something good or bad about me, I'm going to hear about it.
Yeah.
And I'll deal with it accordingly. So you know how it works. But I was very lucky. The office manager brought everyone, one by one into their office and told them that I prefer, Ari they were using universally, but he instead of she. And, it's funny because I just remember the first email I ever got from who was actually my second boss at Black & Veatch, who used my name and my pronouns to a client for the first time. I saved that email. Like I usually post it on Facebook, so I may post it again awesome. If it comes up as a memory, but I block out like the names. I just kind of get like the general context of it. So I remember that. So, that's pretty, 2010 in Florida, that's pretty, forward thinking. But, I've had people be rude to me, cruel to me. I've had issues where people have, because I used to have a YouTube page where I documented my transition. People would write death threats on it, or they would do like some form of cyberbullying, which I'm not acceptable to just because I don't really care what people think, but I'm a little special. Most people aren't really like that. It's special in quotation marks, right? Special in quotation marks. You know what I mean? So, but they were pretty cool with it. And, when I came back to Black & Veatch the second time, they hired me as I am right now. So I think it says a lot about them, and it says a lot about the people I interface with every day directly. Like my boss is a really terrific person, very supportive person. I don't know if he necessarily agrees with what I am or not, but it's not a pinch point. He respects me as a person. He doesn't care. It is what it is, right? Yep. And I bring value to Black & Veatch, and he understands that, so that's how we get along, and it works out fine. So,
yeah. And do you feel like as you are talking to each client, now it's so much easier because someone may identify you as a he right away because of your outward appearance. Can you in any way, I know since you're is it a chair? The Black & Veatch has a committee, or is it
it's an employee resource group. So so we have a women's network. We have Ebony, which is for our Black professionals and allies. We don't exclude anybody. Like if you want to be supportive, you can be a member of any of the ERGs. So, but we have ERG, and really what we do is we try to cultivate, accepting. I feel what we're doing is we're actually creating psychological safety. We're adding to the safety component of people that work here.
That psychological safety, nice.
Right.
Did you coin that one, or is that already up?
Google coined it. So Google did a study of teams because what they wanted to do is become more profitable. So they said, well, what are the elements that make a good team, and how do we get these people to innovate? Because Google, that's literally the only way you make money. Black & Veatch, kind of, but you know what I'm trying to say? It's like they're really like they're the innovators. Like they're the ones that are driving products that people want to buy, right? So they studied this and they found that psychological safety, which really equates to like trust or being able to express unpopular opinions or unpopular solutions to problems or different things, and not have it be like generically crapped on, right? By your coworkers. So if you can say, hey, I don't really feel this is going to work, and this is why, and people listen to it and actually respect it, the likelihood of someone coming forward with the next best idea is probably more probable, right? Yeah. So that's what psychological safety is. It's like you're able to just say and not fear rejection, flat out disrespect, things that people do every day, right?
I like that. That's really good.
So we take that psychological component of it and bring it into, an engineering firm where we're not really, I'm not saying we don't innovate, but we're not selling a product really. We're selling people and services. It's a little bit different. It's not like T-Mobile's our customer. You know what I mean? T-Mobile has a customer base where they buy phones and things are more tangible to the general public. We're dealing with municipalities and cities, and you understand how that is.
Yes.
Right. So, at the end of the day, some of those organizations are a little more behind in terms of being accepting of different types of people. Some of them are the front runners. I mean, if you look at my Instagram page today, which I think we're Instagram friends, right? Yeah, we are Instagram friends, I'm pretty sure. So I think that's how I see
friends, right?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I don't tweet, so we're not that. Because I think Twitter is useless. So anyway, no purpose for Twitter for me. So that's my personal opinion. But if you look at my Instagram, there's a hockey team in Edmonton that's like it's called the Edmonton Rage, and they're like an LGBTQ hockey team. And I love it because a lot of that's deconstructing, why we have homophobia, transphobia in mainstream places, especially if they're male-dominated places, which is a lot of utilities. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Yep.
You got a lot of toxic masculinity, and it's hard to deconstruct those things because people just reinforce it. And unfortunately, with toxic masculinity, you have homophobic jokes. Yeah.
And truly, I gotta, because I do have an international audience, and I know, the community is not accepted the same way in the U.S. and some of the European countries as they are in some of the places that listen to me, because I do every once in a while look at my demographics, and I'm playing in several different countries that probably wouldn't be as accepting as you would say here. So for those, especially in those countries that are accepting everything's good, how do they actually, before, let's say you're going to be the consultant right now in this area, how would you say, like, if a consultant finds out that there is truly a worker that feels like they are at risk in this environment, and truly they feel like, I want to come out, I want to talk to my employer, especially HR, but I think it's going to get even worse that someone is, being picked on. And so what do you think would be a good avenue for them? A mindset for them, maybe.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm actually, before I got on the phone with you, I'm actually working on some training that I'm going to be doing for my identity called bystander training. So, a lot of people and I get messages from a lot of people internally Black and Beach and externally Black and Beach in this industry that tell me, and they're like, I don't know how you do what you do, Ari. It must be really hard. And I'm like, yeah, it's not easy. I get that. Nothing. Being authentic is never easy. It don't matter what you are. And that's what I tell people. Well, being honest about who you are is never going to be easy. Trust me, especially if it's not in alignment with 99% of the people that I sit around. Because let me tell you something. I'm the weirdest one that sits here. And I love it. But you know what? It makes me real to them. And that's what I tell people is that before, when I worked at Black and Beach, that version of me wasn't real. It wasn't, I didn't show up. I literally just came and did the bare minimum and left. And everyone knew it because no one wanted to ask because they assumed they knew what I was, right? They're like, oh, it's like don't ask, don't tell, basically. That's basically what it was. And sometimes it's like that here too. Because people are like, oh, you're already off the normal. I don't want to know what your status is. Like, I'm just gonna, especially in the Midwest, because everyone here has 3 children and have been married for 25 years and they're only 40. I'm just like, how does this happen? I mean, not putting it down, but recognizing it.
That's right.
But I mean, my advice to them is you gotta be okay with the consequences of being who you are. And I'm not saying that they're justified. I'm not saying that it's okay for people to discriminate against other people. But I'll tell you something. I really sat down and said, can I deal with, let's just say, where I work, no matter who it is, Black Beach, ACOT, it don't matter. Put name on the shirt, whatever it is, wherever you are.
Yep.
If that doesn't work out, are you okay with the consequences of that? What matters more? And that's what I tell people. And I said, if you're not in a good place financially, or you're not in a good place emotionally, and you're not able to wrap your brain around that, then it's probably not a good idea right now. That's what I usually tell people. And I say, look for avenues where you can be yourself. For some of our professionals, this Black and Beach is the only place they can be themselves.
Wow.
Some places it's just their family. For some place, you know what I mean? And I have professionals tell me that. And I think that you really have to sit down and say, can I live with the consequences of being who I am? It's not fair. Trust me, I have conversations with people all the time. I'm like, yeah, it's not fair. I mean, but you have to be able to live with what happens. And for me, it came to a point where I said, you know what, I really don't care, because it may be harder for me to find another job, but I'll find another job. It's not the end of the world. I know what I know. I'll find another job. I'll find a place that appreciates it. It's not going to be here, but I'll find another job. And I'll go on, because I'll own the most precious thing I've ever had, which is myself, for the first time ever. And I said that to me was worth it than just coming into work and not interfacing with people that I really cared a lot about. I held back. And those people knew it. People aren't stupid. They get it. Like, no pictures on your desk. Nothing, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh. They're like, this is a, you know, and I feel if people truly care about you, they want to know the true version of you. Because if you're really true to yourself, then you show up in a different way. And we actually prove that where I work. You know, I've had many messages from people who, like this one lady, who I have no idea where she is. She wrote me a message, and I think it was like we did like a kickoff event for our ERG 2 years ago, where we did the the ABCs of the LGBTQ community, where we just literally broke it down and said, I get it, this is intimidating.
That is awesome.
You're straight, you don't get it, no problem. We're here to help you. That's part of what I consider my job to be. So we broke down the whole acronym and said, this is what it means. And what we found is people really didn't know much past the L and the B and the G.
Yes.
They didn't know what the T and the I and the Q. So we broke it all down, and these people were like really appreciative to get that information. But what it resulted in is it created psychological safety for the people that were in that building. So this lady, and I don't even remember what department she works in, I think power, I don't remember. But she wrote me this note, and I actually posted it on Yammer. I said, which is our like internal corporate Facebook. And she's like, can I use this quote? Because it's great. I won't tell people your name. No one will know who the heck you are. I'll sanitize it so no one will ever figure it out. And she wrote me, and she's like, all right, I've been working here for 15 years. And yesterday or the day after the event was the first time I ever brought a picture of my family to work. Can you imagine doing that? Live at 15. I mean, I could easily imagine doing it, but most people don't get it. And I said that This makes a difference. Now this person shows up in a different way. You get a better version of this person because we created a safe place for them to be who they actually are. So now this person's going to bring their family to work events where it's normalized, because it is. And this person's going to feel like they're connected to this organization. And that's what I tell people. It's like, if you really care about the safety and like your business or your utility or your business, right?
Yeah,
you have employees, right?
Absolutely.
Then you have to care about your people, and you have to accept them for who they are, regardless of what political, religious, or unconscious biases you hold. Whatever that is, you have to say, okay, good worker, shows up, happy, authentic, we'll take it, right?
Yep.
It can't be based on these things that at the end of the day, honestly, really don't matter. I mean, it's your life. If you want to go fundamentally believing certain people are inferior to you, you can do that outside of where we work. That's what I tell people. I'm like, you go for it. You do you. You want to go do that? I don't endorse that. I don't want it anywhere near me, but I'm not going to restrict your right to do it. So in these walls, you will at least respect what people bring to the table, and you're not going to use what they are as a reason not to promote them, hire them, whatever, right?
Yep.
So that's what we work a lot on, but I think they're interconnected. I think if you want to have a good safety program, you have to have people that are connected to one another, because people care.
Yep.
I mean, that's where it comes down to. So
that's a great message, because truly, I teach a lot about safety culture and corporate culture, and I say it should be the same. Your safety culture and your corporate culture has to be the same, but in order for you to even get to that level, you have to make sure that management is committed and employees are involved.
Right.
If you don't have those things and someone feels that they're outside of the system, that they're not being accepted, they're being bullied, especially in industries that are like construction. There's truly construction bullying all the time for all different levels. There's bullying in manufacturing. If you go into like even the power and generation, those guys are that kind of work, and
Right.
It's truly one of those things where people will feel bullied, so they don't feel like they have the voice to come out. And as I'm learning now, that psychological safety is a great component. So I thank you for that. I think that's going to help. That's really going to help. It helps me. I'm going to look that up as soon as we get off. I'm like, Google.
Yeah, look it up. They basically studied 500 different teams for a period of a couple years, and it wasn't there were 5 or 6 components they found. Psychological safety was one of them, and companies are just using it as a buzzword now, but I don't really feel they fundamentally understand it. So, it really is integral to everybody's life, and everyone has a story, and everyone has an identity that's intersectional. I'm not just a trans person. That's not the only thing I am. I happen to be white, so I understand what it's like to be perceived as a white man, potentially straight. Usually people perceive me as gay. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me, but I understand one fundamental thing. How people treat me is based on how they perceive me, and perception's reality. So if someone's perceiving me one way and treating me one way and perceiving me another way and treating me another way, that's how it works. Just I'm never going to know what it's like to be a person of color living that existence. I'm not. I don't come from that area of the world, Sheldon. As you know, you're looking at me. I'm white as it comes. And I've never had anybody use race to discount me. But I've witnessed it. And for me, I can understand it because I equate it back to when I was perceived as this gender or perceived as not straight or perceived as these things all intersecting together, this is how people treated me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that to anybody else. And that's why I have to tell people, you got to look at people holistically. It's not just, I'm black, I'm white, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm trans, I'm cis. It don't matter. Cisgender, which is everybody else. It's not trans. It's you have to look at people as people, and even social economic status growing up. It has a great impact on people. I just don't assume that people, just because they're doing well now or they're perceived one way, generally you'll find the perception is not actually who they are. So it's you got to really break down some of those walls and break down some of those assumptions to get people together. And that's really all my ears do, or we try to do at least.
Yeah. No, that's great because truly it's once you get to that level, you are transcending compliance, and now you're getting into culture. Because it starts out with compliance. I got to be OSHA compliant. I got to be EPA compliant. I got to be compliant with my state and all that.
Yep.
And then they deal with that entity, and then all of a sudden they have an issue where there's a near miss or a fatality for a lot of utilities, and then all of a sudden we need to change about culture. Let's start talking about culture. And now they're truly trying to just decide how they get into the culture side, but they kind of feel uncomfortable dealing with the gender identity side, and they don't understand it, so they make fun of it, and that just drives me nuts.
You know what I say makes it uncomfortable? Get used to it. I have to be uncomfortable every second I'm alive, and you don't grow. Being comfortable, you don't grow. And sometimes it really just takes personal relationships. I think, and I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm just saying in general, when people interface with me and they don't understand what I am and they learn about it, I think it changes them. Not always for the better, I guess, but something happens in their brains where they're like, oh, I assumed something and I was wrong. Maybe that wasn't a good idea, or maybe I shouldn't have said that because that was pretty stupid. You know what I mean? It just goes back to you can't assume things about people. When people assume that I was male my entire life, I had a coworker who, she just asked basic things about my life. We were having lunch. She was buying me lunch because I helped bail her out on a project. And she's like, oh, she asked me if I had siblings. I said, yeah, I have 2 sisters. She's like, oh, so you were the only boy in the family. I'm like, well, not really. So she's like, oh, and I said, well, no, I'm a trans person. And that wasn't really my reality until I actually was almost 30. And she was like, oh, the thing about that interaction is that she's like, oh, well, you didn't really need to tell me that. And I said, well, kind of did, because you're comfortable, and I think you need to deal with it. That says more about you than it does about me. And really, I want anybody that I want to have a connection with to understand where I come from in the world. That's very essential to who I am. So,
yeah.
She didn't really have a retort back to that. I think she was embarrassed. It's hard to refute that, right?
Well, you always win every Throwback Thursday, and you throw up some of those old pictures.
Yeah.
Like, damn it, Ari did it again. You won Throwback Thursday.
Yeah, I just do it to say, and not all trans people are comfortable doing that. And I do want to say on this is that if you do interface with somebody who is trans or has a different gender identity, just be respectful. It's not that person's job to educate you. There is Google. Google's a wonderful tool. Any question you'd be too embarrassed to ask someone you know who isn't transgender, you probably shouldn't ask me or anybody else. I just put that out there because that makes me feel unsafe. Yeah. See, it goes back to like what boundaries are, right? I think boundaries are a very important aspect of safety. So just with, and even with, women, right, in a male-dominated field, right, there's boundaries. Yeah. So and I know that because I lived it, but I also see it.
That's such a different perspective that not too many people have. So that makes you so, so just wonderfully blessed in that way that you could, help people see, the bridge, the resources, and, it's almost like, remember the movie White Chicks?
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, that was a special movie. And quotation marks. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's similar to those type of experiences. But for those that really need to get self-educated, Google's good. But is there any organizations or anything you suggest that help?
I mean, sure. I mean, a lot of
websites. Give me some websites if you know them.
Well, I mean, generally, every state has a center for inclusion. So, KC has a center for inclusion. The HRC is a political entity, so a human rights campaign. They actually index and benchmarks inclusivity of municipalities and states and cities. So, for example, Kansas City, I think, is an all-inclusive city, so I think they have 100% on the HRC's index. Black Beach actually has 100% on HRC's index right now.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we actually helped, that's part of the Priority, helped bring that into this organization. And part of that was
HRC.org?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. But it is, I will caveat that it is a political entity, so they do take political stances. So I'm just going to let everyone on this, who's ever listening, understand that I'm not here to upset your sensibilities, but they are a very large lobbying arm. So, but they do have a lot of educational things. So if you can look past political division, right? Because I'm not a political person. I think it all just divides us, and it's just a waste of time. I think people should just do what they want and be happy, and let's not interfere with each other's lives. And you don't want to do something, then just simply don't do it. Seems simple, but most people can't do that. So that's why we have this political divide everywhere. So, but it's a good organization. They have a lot of interesting things, and what I tell people is, if you really care about psychological safety, if you really care about equity, then you really have to learn about inequity, because you can't solve equity by not understanding how people aren't equitable. And it stinks, because it's all the horrible stuff that people don't want to hear about what happens. It's the same with people with race, gender, sexual orientation, gender expression, gender identity, genetic information for people who are intersex. All these things, that when you read the statistics and you read just the way people are treated just because of things that just aren't that important. It's eye-opening, and it is, and for me, it's something that I can't shut. So it's I understand how people are inequitable. I get how that happens. So how can I work towards making things more equitable?
Whatever you want to plug away. Anything you can remember, anything that you want people to reach out to you, any of that stuff.
Yeah. So anybody can reach me. You can. My email is copelada@bv.com. So B as a boy, V as a violin.com. That's where I work. I'm open to anybody that has questions about really anything I've said. I'm pretty open book, as Sheldon knows. You ask me something, I'm going to tell you what I really think about it, which I feel is refreshing and a very New England East Coast mindset. So, but I mean, I just feel I think you have to look at safety as a two-pronged thing. Is that it's emotional, it's psychological, that, creating, like you said, that culture, it's almost backwards. You got to create the culture first, and then you execute the actual safety in practice, right? So that's what I used to tell people. It's like, if we create a psychological safety within these walls, people will show up for who they are. They'll be present, which is key to safety, right? When we're not present, we fall, we trip, we hit our heads against the wall, whatever. If you're texting on your cell phone, ram into a pole, that's not being present, right? Yep. But if we're stressed out on top of that, it's, in my opinion, and probably if you look at statistics, and you would know that more than me, Sheldon, because I'm not really a safety consultant, right? I just watch people do some really interesting things and hope it doesn't happen to me. Yeah. But I bet if you actually did look at the emotional conditions of people, I bet it does increase the rates of accidents at the workplace if we actually did that. And then increasing violence in the workplace is a big one. So, I think you got to really focus on people and not get hung up on if you agree or disagree with who someone is or what someone feels, but just recognize at the end of the day, they're people that have families. And at the end of the day, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if that person's not wearing their hard hat, guess what? They're the weakest link. And we need to find a way to encourage that person to come to the safety side of life, right? So that's all I have to say for that.
All right. Good, man. Thank you so much for the interview. I am just so happy I got you, bud. This is awesome.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Do you want to be a safety consultant? Listen to Dr. Jay Allen of Safety FM give his experience after taking the Safety Consultant Blueprint course.
I have actually done research on different consultants and looked at different consulting courses and so on. There is a pretty fancy, very expensive consulting course that is out there. I have actually purchased the consulting course, was interested in it. It has good information, don't get me wrong. But you have a consulting course that really drives people onto focusing on safety and how to become a safety consultant. I will tell you, on your particular course, there was better information in that particular regards than the other consulting course that was more of a generalist form. But I felt like I got more information out of yours on you giving people direct path on what to do step by step. But I really think that you have a genuine good product there that can really assist people if they're interested in becoming a safety consultant.
Register for the Safety Consultant Blueprint at www.safetyconsultantblueprint.com. Enter code PODCAST for a special discount.
Welcome back to the Safety Consultant Podcast. And I hope you had a good time listening to Ari in this episode. I had a great time, as you could tell. We sound like, just kids talking, just hanging out and just yapping. I had to edit so much because we were just truly just yapping over, certain things. And I just had to get it in a format that you guys will find useful for your business and for your for you. Let's say it that way. So in this, before I do the tip of the week, let me do this. Before I do the tip of the week, I do want to thank you for being there, listening to the show, and thank you so much for your support, encouragement. And if you get a chance, I would love to have you subscribe to the show, like it, share it with some friends, and just truly help me grow. I need you to help me grow, so as best as you can, send this to someone that you feel that will be really good for them, or play it around. Let's say someone for sure wants to get into safety consulting or one of my episodes, especially the demystifying OSHA episodes. That might really help you too. So play it in the office or a safety committee meeting, whatever. So I'm okay. I don't have to listen to it, so I don't feel odd to listen to myself. I don't play myself when I'm teaching classes, so I'm okay. I won't hear you in your safety committee meeting. But anyway, thank you. I really appreciate it. And if you get a chance, stop by a safetyconsultant.us website, take a look around, and see if you want to be part of the membership community. All right, so the tip of the week for today and for the week is just go ahead and think about how you can create psychological safety in your organization. See how deep you really are going to get with your safety culture. See all the areas that your workers need to feel psychologically safe. there might be some really tough conversations as it can come out of this as an organization, but you will advance and become even better as an organization, not only for your individual workers, but you're probably going to be able to do the things that OSHA keeps saying when you have a safety culture, and that is more productivity. You're going to make more money. You're going to save more money. So that's good. And you're going to have workers that are going to be completely dedicated to you because they feel that you care about them enough to want to know how you can include them. So I would really, really look at all the practices, all the procedures, all the personnel that may be hindering, let's say it that way, maybe hindering the psychological safety of others in the workplace, and then see how you can be a force for change in your organization, even because you listen to this show and you're understanding it a little bit more. It's going to be better off for you in the long run, better off for your organization in the long run. So that is the tip of the week. So really think about that, dissect it, critically think about it, find a way for you guys to add that psychological safety aspect to your organization for each one of your workers, and then go ahead and tell me about it. Sheldon at safetyconsultant.us is the best way to reach me. You can go to sheldonprimus.com, and I believe I got an email up there, but if not, go ahead and send me that. If you're on LinkedIn, send me a little LinkedIn note and let me know what you thought. All right, so that is the tip of the week, and I will see you next Monday. Have a great rest of your week.
This podcast is being sponsored by safetyconsultantblueprint.com.
This episode has been powered by Safety FM.